Welcome back to my channel. I'm Madison, and today we are going to be doing a July wrap-up. I feel like July was both super long and went by super fast, and I had a much better reading month than I did in June. I read 19 books this month, around 7,000 pages, which is pretty decent for me. It's a lot better than last month. Just like thinking about last month, July was so much better. My genres for horror and fantasy were tied, which is just like usually pretty true. And then my third genre was literary, which is not always the case. But I also had kind of a lot of arcs that are genres I don't always go for. But I definitely found a couple new 5 stars, so we take those. And I don't think that I had any DNFs either. My average star rating was 4.04, which is pretty good. My 2 new 5-star books are both horror, but like pretty different horror. The first book is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. This was such a tender-hearted zombie novel. I think a lot of the times when I think of zombie fiction, whether that be movies or books, it's either like funny zombie horror and like a lot of gore, or it's like very serious, like almost a drama. But this was so much more than that. This was about the human condition and the human experience and what that exactly means. It was so good. It was kind of like Matilda if Matilda was a zombie. That's how I feel. And we're following this zombie girl, Melanie, and she doesn't know that she's a zombie. The kids in this school don't know that they're zombies, and people in this school are trying to teach them and just kind of see what they can do. But a lot of like the scientific people that are left at the school are horrible, and there's one teacher that actually genuinely cares for them, and we kind of follow their journey. It's so good. I didn't think that a book like this was going to make me want to cry, but it absolutely did. And it's also one of the books that I ended up reading for Summerween. Summerween was super fun this year. I'm hopeful that I can dedicate more time to it next year, but it was still a lot of fun. And then the other book was Sugar by Mia Ballard. I'm officially a Mia Ballard girl. This was so unhinged, so twisty. It was a lot of fun. I loved the inner monologue of our main character. She sucked. She was awful. And I pretty much just liked everything about this book. I don't have a whole lot of complaints. And I had a really fun time. I think that Shy Girl is probably even more unhinged, which is crazy to say, because I think Sugar might be the most unhinged book that I've ever read. Especially like the internal monologue of it all. Very unhinged. And then the only other book that I rated 5 stars this month was a reread for the horror book club that I run, and we read The Starving Saints. I picked the first one just so we could get the ball rolling on it, and obviously I had to pick The Starving Saints. It was just as good the second time, and I just had such a great time. I think that this is just like the perfect book for me. It's a lot of yearning and a lot of weird and a lot of fever dream, but like in a plot following way. So super good. I also got to see Caitlin Starling again for a Cassandra Cause event that they had in Portland, and got my pink edition signed. So that was also really fun. A really fun event. They're both really weird and like to talk about really weird things. It was fun just listening to them talk about gross body things and their upcoming books. The first book that I finished this month was Caught Up by Nevessa Allen. I thought this was fine. I did listen to it on audio because I did enjoy Lights Out so much on audio. This didn't have as many like audio aspects of it, and I liked the male main character a lot less in this one. I liked the female main character more in this one, but my overall enjoyment is less. I'm still gonna be picking up book 3 though. I don't know that we met these people in book 1. I cannot remember. I actually had a discussion about this with someone today, but I know that we know who book 3 is gonna be about, and I'm extremely intrigued. And like dark romance rom-com, nobody does it like Nevessa Allen. Like if that's what you're looking for, this is absolutely the book series. I think possibly my most disappointing release from an author that I've really enjoyed previously may be The Bewitching by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. This was a lot more historical than I wanted it to be, and like I knew it was a historical, but it was also not as witchy and horror as I wanted it to be. It was more about like the feminine experience, but like not in a very interesting way. It was fine. I was expecting it for it to be a 5-star though, and it was more like a 3.5. And that means like I still enjoyed it. I just didn't enjoy it as much as I was expecting it to be. And like the 3 timelines jumping back and forth, I really only cared about the more modern one that was happening in the 1980s. The other 2 I was far less interested in, but it just wasn't what I was expecting from it. And if I would have went into it expecting nothing, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But this felt a lot more like The Lost Apothecary, which I hated. So if you enjoyed The Lost Apothecary though, you'll probably really like this. The most nothing book that I read this month was The Island of Last Things by Emma Slowly. This comes out in August, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's about the last zoo in the world, and it's basically like climate apocalypse happening, and it's a commentary on the upper class and how they're gonna be fine, but everybody else is probably not gonna be in a climate apocalypse or like climate change situation. But I don't know, it just, there was something about it that was extremely boring. I think maybe it was just told too slowly. I didn't necessarily love the narrator's head that we were in, and I don't know, it just like did not click for me. I could see other people enjoying this, but I did buddy read this with someone else and they also didn't like it, so I'm just not sure who this would be for, and I can't really pinpoint something that this book did horrendously. It just was not for me. New favorite, new author I want to read more from is Jimmy Giuliano. I read 13 Months Haunted. This comes out on August 12th. This was so much fun. This is like just a love letter to physical media and the emergence of the internet. And another thing that I really enjoyed with this that I have been struggling to find in especially a lot of the horror arcs that I've been reading this year is that the horror started pretty much immediately. We didn't have this huge preamble. There wasn't all of this like unnecessary world building because it is set in our world. The horror started immediately and it was so much fun. I had such a great time. The ending was a little bit of a surprise to me, and I just really enjoyed my time with this book, and I really necessarily can't say that out of a lot of the horror that I've been reading this year that is being published this year. I gave this a 4.25, and I haven't heard all great things about the other book that Jimmy Giuliano has, but I still think I want to check it out because maybe he's just for me. Another book that surprised me was House of Beth by Carrie Cullen. This is also sapphic, and it's not being marketed that way at all, and I think that it should be. I think the fact that it's sapphic is like a pretty big part of this book. We're following a woman who just has harm OCD for one thing, and just decides to blow up her life and go back to her hometown, and kind of randomly marries her high school best friend, who is a recent widower, and the ghost of his wife maybe in the house too, and so are there 2 young children. It's just so weird, and it's not a perfect book by any means, but I did really enjoy it. The probably worst book that I read this month was My Ex, the Antichrist by Craig DeLuey. This was so much more about the music scene in the 90s than it was horror. I thought the premise was so fun. The premise could have been really fun. The very like end of this book I thought was interesting, but what this author should have done was write a nonfiction book about the music scene in the 90s, because that's what it felt like he wanted to do. The horror was barely there, and I've heard that that's kind of true of How to Make a Horror Movie or whatever that one is that he wrote. So I don't know that I'll read more from Craig DeLuey. I think that he might not be for me. I may read episode 13 because I think I've heard better things about that one, and it's been intriguing to me for years at this point, but it has made me significantly less excited about it. I read Compound Fracture by Andrew Joseph White this month as well. I read that for Summerween. It was my spooky audiobook, and this was really solid. I think that this is the one that's talked about the least, but I think it's on par for me with Hell Followed With Us. Andrew Joseph White definitely puts a lot of like self-insert into these books, and that's true for this one as well. It's still really good though. I enjoy the writing. I enjoy the way that even though there's a supernatural horror element, the horror that Andrew Joseph White really wants to get at is just like the everyday horror that exists in people that we interact with that are just like the people in his books. So I really liked that aspect of it. I read a couple books for the Saga Press event that I was going to so that I could get them signed and just like have read them. And one of them was The Serpent and the Wolf by Rebecca Robinson. This is a pretty standard romantasy, but I also didn't really have any complaints about it except for my least favorite trope at the very end. But up until that point, I was having a great time with this. This is like nothing special, but also I had no complaints about it. So it was a really solid 4-star, and I will probably be continuing the series because I'm hopeful that the trope that I don't like that happened at the end of this book will be reversed in book 2. I have my fingers crossed, and she had shadow magic, which is really fun. I read 2 books where the women had the shadow magic this month, and I think that's great. Women can be shadow daddies too. The other book that I read for the Saga Press event was Flight of the Fallen, which is the second book in the Mage Bike Courier duology, and there was so much bisexual angst in this. It was so much fun. My only complaint about the series is that I wish it would have just been a trilogy. I wanted more of these characters. It was a really fun world. I liked it a lot. We are following a pretty big cast, and they're all angsty. They're just all so angsty, and I think the bike magic system is really cool. I really liked Screech, which is their dinosaur pet thing, and I would definitely recommend this. I think that it's a lot of fun, and I'm excited to see what else Hana Lee comes up with because like I like the way that they write. I think book 2 is better than book 1. Love to see it. And I'm just interested what else is going on in their brain. I read quite a few arcs this month, which is good. I'm trying to get my Neck Alley score up. I read The Second Death of Locke, which is probably my favorite arc that I read this month. If you are a yearner, if you're somebody who loves yearning, this whole book is yearning. I love this book so much. It is just so like, I can't convey how much yearning is in this book, but I'm so excited for everyone to read it. Unfortunately, it does not come out until September, but I'm going to need everyone to read it. It is so good. And also the way that the magic system works, it's like magic only exists when 2 people work together. So interesting. I really like that part of it as well. I also got to read a monster romance arc this month. I haven't read a monster romance in a long time. It was very fun. It was Voidwalker by S.A. McLean. The magic system in this is cool, and it also kind of reminded me of the first book of the Duskwalker Bride series by Opal Rain, and there was a couple horn holding scenes. What can I say? Love a horn holding scene. I had an audio arc of Hemlock and Silver by T. Kingfisher. This may be my favorite T. Kingfisher so far. I haven't read like the majority of her work, so like I still have a ways to go in that regard, but it was super fun. I think it's a Snow White retelling, and the mirror magic system in it is also really cool, and I love a bodyguard romance. That's something that I'm learning about myself this year. I love a bodyguard romance. It's just so good. It was really fun, and it's like the classic T. Kingfisher character of just a quirky FMC, and it was a good time. I'm definitely going to be recommending it to people, and I'm very happy to be getting it in my Owl Crate box because I do think that those lime green sprayed edges are kind of hideous. I also had an arc of The Hounding by Zenobia Purvis. This was good. It was really weird. I think that if you liked Slewfoot or Fragile Animals, then it's probably the one for you. It was really solid, but like I don't feel the need to go out and buy it. Like it's a 4-star, but I don't need it on my shelves kind of situation. It's about 5 sisters who live with their grandfather who is going blind, and their parents have passed away, and everyone in the village thinks they're turning into dogs. So definitely weird. And the last arc that I read and the last book that I read in August was Tantrum by Rachel Eve Molstrom. This was a motherhood story, and I don't tend to like motherhood horror. I usually don't like it, but that cover did get me. It sucked me in. It looks cool, but like I think I'm not super into the horrors of motherhood. I have really no interest in being a mother. I'm not a mom, so I don't really relate to it in that way. It just didn't really resonate with me. It did get really weird though. I appreciated that about it, and I definitely liked the second half better than the first half, but just like not a book for me. I went into it knowing it probably wasn't going to be for me, but the premise kind of and the cover, I was like, I'm just going to try this anyway. And it's super short, so I don't feel, I didn't feel a need to DNF or anything. I saw it through, but like just kind of not for me. And the last book that I'm going to talk about is Oddbody. This is a short story collection, and if you are searching for a weird girl book and you're like, there's just nothing out there that's weird enough for me, nothing is matching my freak, this is the book. This is probably the book. They were all really weird. They all had something to say. I didn't necessarily like hate any of the stories, but I didn't love any of the stories either, but also they were just really weird. So I'm definitely going to be recommending it to people. And again, I just don't totally love short story collections, but I keep picking them up for some reason. Maybe I'll find one that's for me. I'm really excited for This Is the End of the World as We Know It that's coming out in August, but yeah, I don't know. It just was not my perfect short story collection, but I'm sure there's one out there for me. Those are all the books that I read in August. I'd say I had a pretty solid reading month, all in all. Not my best one this year, but definitely by far not my worst. And let me know the best book that you read in August, or the worst book, or both. If you have nothing to say, leave me any animal you can find in a zoo for the Island of Last Things, and I will see you in the next one, maybe in a vlog. Bye!